Yes, we know that Penn State's going to win, but could Nebraska keep the dual meet score to a single-digit deficit?
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Penn State fans? That is right. You are Locked On Nittany Lions. Thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Zach Seyko, bringing you all things Penn State sports coverage. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers, when you join today, you will get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more is a winner. It's that easy. It's that simple. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports. We talk more than just football on the show. Today we're talking wrestling, and it's another preview episode, and that's why we bring back the expert himself, the voice of Penn State wrestling, Jeff Byers, also morning show host over at Fox Sports 98.7. You can catch a show daily, 8 to 10 a.m. on 98.7 FM. You can also stream it at 987thefox.com. Jeff, thanks so much for the time once again.
Yeah, no, thank you, Zach. And definitely looking forward to the Big Ten dual meet finale. And then, the real fun gets underway here in just a few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. But they got to go through arguably the toughest matchup. And I began to talk about it, to discuss it on other episodes. But this is something that you made me aware of. Nebraska, as tough as Iowa is, and Penn State made quick work of them, as tough as Michigan, or as talented as these teams are, Michigan, Iowa, the rest of them, Penn State made quick work of them. But Nebraska's a little different here. And so in these preview shows, they're all the same. We're going to start with our prediction and then kind of back it up with what we see we're going to talk about all the best head-to-head matchups and where Penn State and Nebraska are going to spar. But the Cornhuskers certainly have an advantage at weight classes that Iowa, Michigan, and others did not. I think this one is going, and maybe I'm crazy. Other people said, no, Penn State will handle Nebraska. I think Penn State wins. Don't get me wrong. They still have a lot more talent. They still have a good amount of talent, more so than Nebraska. But the way they match up in terms of a dual meet, this one could easily be single digits, Jeff. But correct me if I'm wrong. And Penn State, at least for the first half of the duel, if they start at 125, and I imagine they will, 125 through 149, that's going to give Penn State problems that they haven't seen this season. And this is, I guess, a good precursor to see how they'll do in the Big Ten tournament and NCAAs. But Nebraska will make this one close. And Penn State's going to have to kind of have cleanup duty with 174, 197, and heavyweight to cap off the dual meet. But I think that Nebraska makes this one a very exciting one.
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple of things. One is I'll start now with the caveat of assuming both teams are healthy, which is a dangerous assumption as we've seen
starting lineups.
Yes, couple of weeks, just because of we're at that time of the year where there's sickness running through a lot of these wrestling rooms, just as there is society at large. It's flu and cold season, and they're in the throes of it right now. So, assuming everybody is healthy and ready to go for both teams, yeah, I do think Nebraska probably matches up as well as anybody in the Big Ten. But let me also backtrack on that very quickly and point out that nobody matches up with Penn State well this season. You are talking about a lineup, and I'm not sure, maybe they are, but I'm not sure fans are completely understanding how unbelievable it is that Penn State right now has all 10 starters ranked in the top 11. They had all 10 ranked in the top 10 last week. I mean, you have 10 bona fide All-American candidates. Now, no guarantees. Nobody's saying that, yep, it's a lock, Penn State will get 10, but it is very much in play. That has happened, just so we're clear, once in the history of college wrestling. We're talking about Dan Gable coach teams. We're talking about John Smith coach teams. We're talking about great teams throughout the history of the sport. One, in 2001, Minnesota had 10 All-Americans, and that team had 0 in the finals. No national champions, no runners-up. So Penn State not only has 10 legitimate contenders, and again, we'll see how it plays out, but they also have 5 guys ranked number 1. Half of their lineup is ranked number 1. Well, there's only been 5 times in the history of the sport where you've had one team crown 5 national champions. Nobody's ever crowned more. Penn State did it twice, Iowa did it twice, and Oklahoma State did it once. So Penn State has a chance to have both the 10 All-Americans, it's only been done once before, and to equal or even surpass the 5 national champions in one season. And as we saw against Rutgers, Zach, this team also has depth, like very few, if any, we've seen in the history of the sport as well. Against Rutgers, you had 2 guys, 2 backups, go up a weight class. Okay. Terrell Barraclough has wrestled the entire season and weighed in to wrestle at 165, went up to 174 and knocked off the 13th ranked wrestler in the country. And then Lucas Cochran weighed in at 197 and goes up and knocks off the 8th ranked heavyweight. So it is the combination of depth top to bottom in the lineup, depth in terms of guys behind the starters in the room, and then, just the firepower, the overall firepower that this team has. So, when I say Nebraska, I think matches up as well as anybody. Yes, again, it's all relative. At the end of the day, Penn State could run the table here. And I would say that about any team that they've faced. Now, I do think there are going to be, as you said, I think at least 3 of those first 4 bouts are going to be really good competitive bouts. But could Penn State run the table in all 4? Well, and Penn State will be favored in 3 of them. Penn State will have the higher ranked wrestler in 8 of the 10 weight classes. So when we say it's a tough matchup or it's a good matchup, it is. I think there's a lot of matches that, in my mind, even with the rankings, are more toss-up category. But if you go by the rankings, again, Penn State is favored in 8 of the 10. And in one of the ones where they're not favored, you have a 3-time All-American in Bernie Truax, who's, 3 spots lower than his opponent. So, listen, I think it's a tough matchup. I do think there's going to be a lot of great individual bouts, but, we'll see how it plays out. Nobody has won more than 3 bouts in a dual meet against Penn State. Is it possible Nebraska gets a 4th bout victory? It's possible. I don't know that I would say it is likely. I think Nebraska, on paper, probably 2, maybe 3 bouts is what you would expect if the results go as they should on paper.
Yeah, so you're anticipating about. I mean, I look at this right, and it's the lower weight classes because I have no concerns at Carter Starachi, 197, Aaron Brooks, heavyweight, Greg Kirkplate. It also has to do with the matchup as well. Aaron Brooks is going to be going up against Silas Allred, but it's projected again. But all things considered, is everybody healthy? Right, health is a matter of point here. But 174, Bubba Wilson ranked 33rd. So that's not going to throw Starachi off, or even if there's a backup in there, that's someone. So you preface that for that point that Starachi was not at the Bryce Jordan Center duel, or did not wrestle in the Bryce Jordan Center dual meet. But what does that mean for Sunday's contest? And then at heavyweight, Greg Kirkplate, same thing, did not wrestle. Is that just a matter of having the day off, the night off, or is there, implications of, hey, maybe they're dealing with another illness or the flu bug going around and everything? But focusing on 125 through 149, Tyler Cael is going to be up against it. I would like to see him upset Ridge Lovett, but that one's probably going to go to the number 1 wrestler at 149. But at 125, I think Braden Davis has at least, I don't want to say taken a step back, but certainly there's definitely been a reality check. Moving up to the number 2 spot, people are fully aware of how good Braden Davis is. It's not just, he's this really good true freshman. That people know, hey, he's a really good true freshman. We need to wrestle up to match that. And he's got a graduate opponent, a graduate senior in Caleb Smith. I've seen Jacob Van D wrestle in person. I know he's a freshman in his own right, but at 133, and Aaron Nagel, just again, some question marks about how capable he is inside the top 10. Jacob Van D isn't going to be any slouch. At 141, Bo Bartlett has really turned it on, established himself as the number 1 wrestler, but it doesn't get any easier with Brock Hardy. So those are I look at these and yes, Penn State's favored in them, but they're also, in my mind, toss-ups that could easily go to Nebraska if things don't go well for those individual Penn State wrestlers.
Yeah, I think 125 is definitely, in my mind, in the toss-up category. I do really like what what they're doing, what the coaches are doing with Braden Davis and kind of guiding him through. This is a little longer season than your high school season. Okay. And it is certainly more of a grind, right? You're a freshman at Penn State. You're, away from home. I think fans just kind of think, oh, it's automatic. You come to Penn State and you just wrestle well. Again, Braden Davis is from Michigan. He's a long way from home. He's just in his second semester of college. Still working through the classes and everything that goes with that. Sure. And now that you add in the grind of a college wrestling season, and I think, listen, this coaching staff is really smart about the way they approach things. And I think, there's some specific things that they're working on technique wise with Braden right now. But I think even more so, it's, hey, let's get the right mindset. The focus remains not on winning and losing at this stage of the season. It's on, okay, do we feel good about the way we're wrestling? I think Braden Davis ought to be feeling really good about the way he's wrestling. That weight class, to me, is as wide open as a
so
weight
volatile.
Class. As we've seen in a long time. There are just a whole lot of guys in the mix for All-America honors and high AA honors. And I think Caleb Smith and Braden Davis are two of those guys that I don't think it would be shocking if neither of them got on the podium. I don't think it would be shocking if we saw them meet in a third-place match at the NCAA tournament. And, I mean, they're both really good and right there. But I really do like what Braden Davis is bringing to the table right now and the mindset he has. But this will be, no doubt, a big test for him late in the season here, and it's an important one in terms of the seedings. I think 133, I mean, Jacob Van D obviously showed what he's capable of when he knocked off Ragusin in that Michigan duel, and Ragusin has certainly turned a corner in a big, big way. So, Van D is really dangerous. I think Aaron Nagawa is going to be fine. There were some things going on that he's going to be fine. It's an aggressive, maybe being over aggressive and trying to fit in with the Penn State aggressive culture. And I think Aaron's just got to kind of find his own his own wrestling style and be comfortable with it. And I think he is, and I think he'll be right there. I don't have any grave concerns about what he's going to be able to do in the postseason. But this is a big and tough matchup for him. There's no doubt about that. On Sunday. And same thing, it's a style thing, but Brock Hardy, I think, is a really tough style matchup for Bo Bartlett. I think it'll be a fun bout to watch. I obviously love the way Bo's wrestling right now, and I think, if you're a Penn State fan, you ought to be going in feeling good about that. But, Hardy is a really tough customer. And then for Tyler Casack, Zach, I am probably looking forward to this bout as much as any on Sunday. Let's see exactly where Tyler Casack is, because I think he's right there. But Rich Levitt is obviously really, really talented and really, really experienced. I think this will be just a fun opportunity. And regardless of how it turns out, I think a really good learning experience and a valuable one to get just a few weeks ahead of the Big Ten tournament here for Tyler Casack. But I think, on paper, would it be shocking if Nebraska wins 3 or even 4 of those first 4 bouts? Maybe if they go 4-0, it'd be a little surprising for sure. Right. But I think when you look at the head-to-head matchups, I don't think there's any of those that you'd be shocked that Nebraska won. But I also think it's, within the realm of possibility that Penn State runs the table. As you said, Casack has his work cut out, but I don't rule Tyler Casack out against anybody, Rich Levitt included. But you rightfully are going to favor Levitt going into that one. And again, the question will be what kind of adjustments, win, lose, or draw, then does Penn State make really with all of these matches from regular season to the Big Ten and then to the NCAA tournament.
Still to come, 157, Levi Haynes, a rematch where he turned the corner, and that opponent was Peyton Robb, where Haynes really started to come on as a true freshman. And that's a rematch that Penn State fans and wrestling fans alike should be eager to see. 165, Mitchell Messenbrink has another top 15 matchup, and then Bernie Truax is going to be tested against the Pennsylvania native Lenny Pinto. That's all coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sports book of Locked On. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more is a winner. That's $150 in bonus bets if you can pick a winner to start. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. You can combine all those different bets that you like into one parlay for boosted odds. And all you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/locked on and shoot your shot. That's FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. The Locked On Podcast Network is making history. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, and it's also now available on YouTube and Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering each and every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, and now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. So we went through the lower weight classes, and there is a lot of toss-ups with one matchup favoring Nebraska there. Could they sweep all of them? Hypothetically, but it's not out of the question that Nebraska could win 3, but then at 157, 165, that's when Penn State's really going to settle in. And like I said, just have a mop-up duty, cleanup duty. And of course, there's really not much analysis we can have at 174, 197, and 285 based on matchup and what Penn State has to offer. And I think Mitchell Messenbrink and Levi Haynes are both favored at 157, 165, but these matchups are a little tighter. Peyton Robb's been around the sport of wrestling now for a long time, and gosh, what a comeback story for Peyton Robb, who had, that very life concern, right, at the end of the NCAA championships. He's recovered, and he's back stronger than ever wrestling. So you got to imagine that for Robb personally, there's this momentum for his wrestling career as it wraps up. And Levi Haynes, before everything happened off of the mat, he disrupted what Robb was chasing a season ago. And it's like, now there's this revenge opportunity. So it's 1 versus 7, according to Intermat. Of course, I like Levi Haynes to win this one, but Robb's probably coming in again with the idea that, hey, I have to pay back Levi Haynes for what happened last season in the postseason.
Yeah, it is great. I will start with it. It is just fantastic to see Peyton Robb out there and wrestling. The sport is better with him in it. He's a fun kid to watch wrestle, and obviously a great competitor, and really, really glad to see that he is getting the opportunity. I do think in terms of the matchup, Levi Haynes, I just think caught another gear that if you want to call it a wake-up call or whatever it was against Soldati out at Michigan State when he needed the last-second reversal. Since then, and I really thought kind of in the moment that might be just the bout that Levi Haynes needed to just get back to wrestling relaxed. It felt to me like he was wrestling just a little tight throughout the first portion of the season, and maybe feeling I don't know that it was necessarily the pressure of being number one, but I think the focus maybe was a little bit, at least it felt to me, that maybe he was focusing on getting the wins instead of just wrestling. Since that win over Soldati, Levi is wrestling like the Levi that we came to know and love at the end of last year. He just is. He's in a flow. He's comfortable. He doesn't get panicked if he's gets caught in a tough situation. He trusts his instincts, trusts his training, and he's just rolling with it. I do think that has the potential to be as entertaining as any bout in the lineup on Sunday. Both those guys are willing and able to go out and get after it, and I'm hoping that is as entertaining a bout as I think it'll be, because I think you could see some really elite level wrestling in that particular bout. But again, to me, both Levi and Mitchell are just kind of wrestling at another level right now. And I think both obviously have the potential to be in the national title mix, certainly at the end of the year. And then, the biggest matchup in the second half for Penn State is obviously Bernie Truax and Lenny Pinto. And I think that's one that, again, regardless of the outcome and regardless of how this plays out on Sunday, I think it'll be a good bout for Bernie Truax to get at this stage of the season and figure out, okay, this is where I'm at. These are the adjustments I still need to work on and make heading into the postseason. But I that's going to be a really fascinating bout, I think. And again, both those guys, I think, have national title aspirations. And this could be a preview of, Big Ten and NCAA matchups down the road.
Pinto's as good as advertised, and similar with Jacob Van D. When I was actively covering Pennsylvania high school wrestling, and to see them at the state level and everything, Pinto dealt with some injuries as well. But I mean, to go back to Jacob Van D a little bit, Jacob Van D is a machine, which is why just with the momentum, I'm not saying Aaron Nagao is a bad. He's just outside the top 10. He's not a bad wrestler, but you have positive momentum for Jacob Van D, who's coming off that very impressive bout against Michigan, against Ragusan, respectively, and just Nagao, kind of this back and forth. There really isn't this rolling momentum that you would like Nagao to have at this point of the season. So that's why I say, hey, that one's a toss-up that maybe, Jacob Van D should be favored in just because of where they are right now. When the postseason rolls around and they might face each other again, then it's a different story. Now, same thing, Pinto, number 3, we're, just missing a top 5 matchup by one ranking. But Bernie Truax, similar thing, gets caught in a pin against his opponent at Ohio State. I would have liked to maybe see him pull off a major decision and I know that's not exactly Truax's game. Truax is more of a defensive technician and wins that way by just smothering you. That's the way that he is able to win. So 7-0 is more of just his style of wrestling, not the, a 15-0 tech fall that Mitchell Messenbrink, because he's so aggressive offensively, is able to get. So when you're looking at Pinto and Truax specifically, Jeff, what is it that because I would put Pinto as the favorite just simply because Pinto is ranked higher right now, and Truax, like I said, doesn't have the momentum that you would like him to have. But if Truax is going to return to his roots essentially and be one of those top-rated wrestlers at an All-American level, which he still is, but you want to see that a little more solidified here, what can he do to upend Pinto?
Yeah, in my mind, honestly, that one is a toss-up. I just think that both those guys, it's who's on that given day. I think Truax has just an outstanding single leg, and I think he is very tough to beat when he gets in on that. And he's obviously really, really good on top. So, I think kind of cliche, but I do think first takedown in that bout is big, not necessarily end of the world if you give it up, but for either one. I mean, they're both certainly capable of coming back. But, I think if you're drawing up the ideal game plan for each wrestler, it would be get that first takedown, get some riding time built up in that first period, ride some momentum onto it, and try to wear the other guy out a little bit as the match goes on. Again, I think for me, 157, I just think because of the styles, I think that could be the most entertaining bout. In my mind, going into this 184 is the one I'm expecting to be the most competitive. Now, 125, 149 certainly could be 133. I mean, there's a lot of potential here, but this one I think is just going to be kind of fun to see who is able to get their style going, and then kind of who is able to withstand or persevere in that third period and come through with the win. So I'm interested to see just kind of the strategy by both wrestlers and then kind of the execution of that at 184. I think that's going to be a really fun and an intriguing bout for the fans to watch on Sunday.
4 p.m. start in Rec Hall. We still have one more segment to get to. Aaron Brooks at 197. It's like, it's an assumed victory and maybe some bonus points here, but Silas Allred is very talented in his own right. We'll talk a little more at 174 and heavyweight on the other side of this break here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's episode is also brought to you by Gametime. You got to download the Gametime app because buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all of the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. I've used the Gametime app before. Some of the things that I like about the Gametime experience are the fact that you get last minute tickets, but you get flash deals on those last minute tickets. So discounts on those tickets. And it's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. Gametime is very good about sorting all the events. So you're not searching for, hey, what's going on in my area. It's all aggregated for you. And then probably the best feature, image views of the seats. So you're not second guessing. You're not wondering, what's my point of view going to look like? You already have that before you get to the event or the venue. Plus, you get lowest price guarantee and event cancellation protection. Snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app. Create an account and use promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account. Redeem code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Remember, if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports. Talk more than just football on this show. Talk recruiting, men's basketball, men's hockey, wrestling, like we are doing in today's show. And Jeff Byers, the voice of Penn State wrestling, goes live at 3:45, 4 p.m. first bout of that dual meet against Nebraska in Rec Hall for the final Big Ten matchup. You can listen to all of it, streaming it at gopsusports.com. And in this final segment, just a little more housekeeping, just wrap it all up here. 174 guaranteed victory. Even with if Carter Starachi's in the lineup, if it's Terrell Barraclaw, I think either way Penn State should be heavily favored in that matchup, just based on what Nebraska is going to be doing. But at 197, since this isn't, same thing at heavyweight, Greg Kirkfleet is going to go up against an unranked wrestler, and that should be anticipated as a victory with some bonus points included as well. But Aaron Brooks, there's still a large gap here, but Silas Allred, this is a top 15 matchup. I like Aaron Brooks a lot. I think he wins. I think he gets some bonus points as well. Who knows, maybe even gets a pin. But Allred is not going to go down quietly here. So what are you anticipating, Jeff, between the number one wrestler in Brooks and someone who's ranked inside the top 15 at 13 in Allred?
Well, this is another one where I'm just interested to see how Silas Allred tries to wrestle, because Aaron Brooks has been visibly upset a couple of times here in the last month with opponents who clearly were out there just to keep it close, slow him down, and maybe keep it close enough that they give themselves a chance on a takedown in the third period. And they haven't been wrestling. I think Silas Allred is a guy that wants to go out and wrestle. And he obviously, as you said, he is very good. He's the Big Ten champion from a year ago. So the guy knows what he's doing. Yeah. He is a tremendous talent. If Aaron Brooks is on, and he is usually on, and you wrestle, it generally doesn't matter how good you are. Aaron Brooks is just next level good. And it may be competitive in terms of, I almost had that, or man, I was in on the shot here. But at the end of the day, if Silas Allred wrestles Aaron, I think Aaron wins it by major decision, and I think it'll be a wildly entertaining bout. If Silas Allred looks at the tapes and the Nebraska coaches say, listen, this is our best strategy to win, let's tie up the wrists. And then what I'm going to be curious to see is, okay, can Aaron Brooks now make that next adjustment? And it doesn't matter if you're just trying to slow me down. I'm going to figure out ways to get the angles, to power my way through it, whatever. I am really interested to see what the strategy is here, dual meet wise, from Nebraska's perspective. Assuming we start at 125, I think Penn State should have the dual meet in hand by the time you go to 197, in which case I would think, if I'm Nebraska, hey, we want to wrestle like we would at the Big Ten or the NCAA tournament. Let's go for it and see what we can do. If that does happen, again, at the end of the day, I think it favors Aaron Brooks and, being able to secure a possible bonus point there.
Jeff, who needs this dual meet the most? Penn State's accomplished so much in terms of milestones. Cael Sanderson getting his 200th career victory as Penn State's head coach, the 1,000th victory all time in Penn State wrestling history. But then individually, who does a good dual meet, a great dual meet, benefit the most in this Penn State lineup here? Who needs this to get on track, to stay on track, to correct some mistakes from maybe earlier in the season, ones that we've seen, maybe ones that we haven't seen.
Yeah, I think the two guys that just jump off the page to me are Aaron Nagao and Bernie Truax. I think both of those guys are searching for, for Truax, it would be a signature win this season.
Yeah.
For Nagao, it would be a big win to get and kind of, I think, get back in the right frame of mind, confidence-wise, heading toward the postseason. So in my mind, those are the two guys that, a win would most benefit. Conversely, I think a loss would be really tough. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that neither of them can recover if they lose the bout on Sunday, because I don't believe that's the case. I think both are certainly capable, regardless of the outcome Sunday, of going on and doing great things in the postseason. But if you're looking for the two guys that I think really could use a win to feel good and feel confident that they're on the right track here heading to the postseason, I think those two would be at the top of the list. Braden Davis would probably be just a peg below for me. I think even if Braden loses this one, I just think he's racked up enough wins and knows enough about where he's at and the adjustments he needs to make. I don't think it's and I wouldn't use the term devastating for any of them, but I don't think it's as big of a deal for Braden Davis to take a loss if it's a competitive loss and you learn another thing or two from it, as it would be for Nagao and Truax. I think Nagao and Truax could really use the win, and maybe as importantly, it would help them psyche-wise to avoid the loss at this stage of the season.
And again, that one goes down this Sunday, 4 p.m. in Rec Hall. If you want to listen to Jeff's call of the match, does it all by himself solo, you can stream it at gopsusports.com beginning at 3:45. Penn State versus Nebraska. Nebraska, I think, very impressive to this point. Only one dual meet loss. Again, has some good head-to-head matchups that somewhat favor them, but at least keep them in the contest against Penn State. It's not going to be this barrage, this ambush that Penn State's going to, blitz them out in front, and there's just no recovery here. Nebraska will make this entertaining as Penn State finishes up a Big Ten play here. So, Jeff, thanks so much for the time again, and I know you'll enjoy this one just as much as I will on Sunday.
You got that right. Thanks, Zach.